When we talk about the legislation being set up to fail, the legislation's set up to fail specifically farmed animals and introduced animals. And quite often companion animals and wild animals are unintended victims of that set up to fail. So what I mean when I say it's been set up to fail, we have animal cruelty legislation, but first of all, there are exemptions. There are exemptions for farmed animals and there are exemptions to cruelty laws for introduced animals as well. So what would be illegal to do to a dog, say performing some kind of mutilation procedure where you hacked off a large chunk of flesh from a dog, people would be outraged, you would be rightfully prosecuted. Whereas that's still happening to many, many sheep in Australia through the mulesing procedure. And of course, there are other forms of mutilations that happen to animals on farms as well. So there's actually carved out exemptions, and the same exemptions exist for introduced animals. And that's how it's legal to use hideous poisons like 1080 poison and pindone poison, for example. Then it gets worse than that. So apart from the fact that there are exemptions, then we've got private charities being charged with investigating and prosecuting any acts against the law. So every piece of criminal legislation in this country is fully funded by the government, except animal protection laws. In New South Wales, the enforcement of animal protection laws has 6% of that enforcement cost being funded, which means that 94% of the cost for actually overseeing these laws and prosecuting people who have broken those laws is fundraised from the public. So it would be like asking the police to set up a fun run to raise money to investigate and prosecute people driving under the influence. I mean, that sounds absolutely insane, and it is insane. But that is what we're doing with animal protection laws. And what that means is, for these charities, is that they have to be very, very careful about what cases they take to court, because it's very expensive to go to court, and they'll have to fundraise every time they go to court. So you've got a charity with very little money that's been charged with upholding these laws, and there's no oversight either onto those charities as well. So their prosecution powers are signed off by the government, and they can not get those prosecution powers at any point in time. They can stop signing them off to be able to give them those prosecution powers. And then they have to go out and raise the money to actually uphold the law. But the person that also signs off on these laws to allow them to prosecute is the Minister for Agriculture, who is the minister that is also set up to protect primary industries. And of course, animal protection is often the complete opposite of making the most money that we possibly can out of these animal industries. So, I mean, I hate the term putting the fox in charge of the hen house, but that's exactly what's happening here. So you've got this minister who is in charge of the animal welfare portfolio on a state and federal levels that is essentially also a mouthpiece for the animal agribusiness industry. So it's very hard to get improvements in the legislation. And then what is the weak laws that are already in existence are almost impossible to enforce and uphold. And so that's why I say that, the whole thing is set up to fail.